Gordon, good evening.
Good evening.
Nice to meet you. I'm Matthew. I'm your host tonight. So you've been building your own marketing agency since 1986, which is longer than 30 years now.
Yeah.
And today you're the owner of the company called FatBuzz.
Mm-hmm.
So could you please describe your company in, let's say, 5 words?
In 5 words.
Yeah.
We're a full-service marketing agency who provides services to just about every sector, every industry sector throughout the UK.
So what kind of sectors would you say are the most rewarding to work with?
The most rewarding?
Yeah, rewarding and interesting.
The ones that pay me. I wouldn't say there's any one that's that's more rewarding than any other. I think the variety is what keeps it interesting. And certainly during COVID, managed to keep us afloat because we weren't reliant on any one sector. So right at the start of COVID, we only had one client in hospitality and one client in tourism. If we'd been heavily reliant on these sectors, we would have struggled. But we work with anything from start-up businesses to or businesses that have even started, businesses that are going through investment, funding, right through to local authorities, public sector, large organisations turning over, 400 or 500 million. So there's a massive variety. I think that's what keeps it interesting. If you pushed me, I would say the most we do is probably in the construction sector, but
Joineries and everyone.
our business is pretty much split. So maybe 60% business marketing, so helping businesses market to other businesses, and 40% consumer businesses, where we're helping clients market to end users and consumers.
So in working with other businesses, what are other businesses looking for when establishing relations? So in terms of marketing, how would you make a strategy that's most efficient for other businesses to kind of go on the market?
That's a difficult one. Every business is different. It's about understanding what the business needs, and you'll be surprised at how often the business owner doesn't understand what they need. You'll be surprised at how often the business owner doesn't understand their own audience. So it's helping them, first of all, establish what they need and establishing who their buyers are, and then looking at how do we reach these buyers. What we do is very targeted. It's not like the old days of radio, television, newspapers, where you put adverts out there and hope that the right person saw it. What we do is very, very targeted, where we're trying to tell stories about a brand to a very relevant, specific audience that will buy from them. So a lot of the time we call what we do brand journalism. So we're creating stories about a brand and getting that in front of the people who that brand would expect to buy from, whether that's consumers or businesses. And believe it or not, it's probably easier to market to other businesses than it is to market to consumers, because they're easier to identify, and it's easier to do that niche marketing by identifying out who are the people that buy from you. That's how do we actually get the message in front of them.
So what is the most important thing in creating a story that sticks?
Well, it's not one story, it's an ongoing story. We look at content and content marketing. It's about how do we create a range of interesting content to put in front of the target audience. So we'll start with simple things like the calendar. We'll look at the annual calendar, Christmas, Easter, New Year's Day, Valentine's Day, Mother's Day, Father's Day. How can we, is there anything that brand do that we can actually talk about and relate back to these particular topics? Then we'll maybe look at the local calendar. So what's going on in Glasgow that our client can actually tap into. Then we'll look at the industry sector they work in. So what is the news from the industry that they work in? I'm a great believer in the fact that people buy people. So how do we humanise the business? So how do we introduce the people behind the business to their relevant audience? We always work to a content calendar, so we know 3, 4, 5 months out what we're going to be talking about. And there's always scope within that to add in content for things we don't know about, things that may happen in the news, like 3 Prime Ministers in 6 weeks and stuff like that. How can we actually use that content in relation to a client's business? So whilst it's a clearly defined content plan, we do leave, it's not cast in stone, we do leave room to actually build in anything topical in the news that is relevant, that we can get out to the target audiences. And that story varies from client to client depending on what it is they're trying to sell. I don't know if any of you are into horse racing, but 2 or 3 years back, AP McCoy, the champion jockey, was retiring. And at the time we were doing some work with quite a big firm of financial planners. And you might think, well, what's horse racing got to do with financial planners? But if you look at the reason he was retiring at the height of his career because he wanted to spend time with his family. And what financial planners do is help you retire sooner so that you can enjoy your success. So we wrote some content about why he was retiring and the fact that most other people can retire early if they plan properly. So we tied it into his retirement because we knew that was big news because he was still champion jockey at the time. But we actually timed that content to be released at exactly the minute that he finished his last race because we knew lots of people would be searching for information on AP McCoy.
Last race.
So when they put in AP McCoy, the content that we've created comes up. So it's things like that. It's just finding things that where we can relate a business to an event of some sort.
That's interesting. So you mentioned success. How would you define success?
I think that changes as you go through life. If you'd asked me this, I started in 1986. If you'd asked me in 1987, it would have been that I managed to stay in business for a year. Lots of people define it as having lots of money or having achieved what they set to achieve, and all these things are fine. But I think when you get to my age, I've got 3 kids. They're all doing very well, and they're all 2 of them work in the business. And my daughter, who heads up our marketing team, actually won the Young Business Person of the Year at Glasgow Business Awards 2 weeks ago. So these are things that I see as a success that you've managed to bring up kids and they've hopefully learned something from.
Having a good work and life balance, the next possible.
Yeah, I don't have a good work-life balance. Most people will tell you that. Work-life balance is an alien concept to me because I enjoy my work so much that I don't actually see it as work. So I probably Monday to Friday I'll work 14 hours a day, something like that. I don't see it as work. It's just what I do is what I've always done. When I set up a business in 1986, I quite frequently started working on Monday morning and didn't finish till Thursday night. So I didn't go to bed at all, just worked 24 hours a day for these 4 days. And that was quite a regular occurrence to do that. But I'm too old to do that. So.
Well, maybe it's a good thing that you're not doing it anymore. You've been in the marketing business for now over 30 years. Except for the emergence of social media, how would you say that marketing has changed?
Except for the emergence of social media.
I mean, it is a big thing. We're going to talk about it in the next question. But
I actually saw a picture on LinkedIn yesterday of an old drawing room, an old draftsman's room with massive A4-sized drawing boards. That's when I started work. We used drawing boards, and there was no computers.
Coming up with design by hand.
Yeah. So you're probably all too young in here to remember a thing called letraset, which was rubbed down letters that you rubbed down onto the page, and that was the way we created artwork.
Was that before the printing press?
Not quite, no, but not far behind it. But I actually, somebody brought in the sheet of this letraset to the office quite recently, and I showed it to the staff, and they were all youngsters, and they didn't believe me. They thought it was a wind-up that you would have done things in such a manual process.
Barbaric.
Yeah, and it's so I think the tools have changed dramatically, even before social media, the arrival of desktop publishing and stuff like that. And back in 1989, I think it was, I installed a networked Apple system in the office, still before the internet, but they all spoke to each other in the office, and it was all for desktop publishing, making things more computerized. So I think technology is, even with the internet, technology has played a massive part in changing the way we do things. There was no such thing as Photoshop when I started in business, and certainly nothing like Canva or all these tools you can get nowadays.
They make life a lot more convenient, I guess.
Yeah, no, much more convenient. Yeah.
So if we're talking about the emergence of new tools, and we see social media as a tool for creating a platform, what advice would you give to someone who is looking to build this platform online?
Believe it or not, it's becoming much more challenging to build any or get any real reach on social media without paying for it. And that's something we say to every single client, that the organic reach on social media is a challenge nowadays. And there's a simple reason for that, with the exception of LinkedIn, I'll deal with LinkedIn separately, but Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, TikTok, all of these platforms are 100% reliant on ad revenue. So they control the newsfeed, and they want you to advertise. So if you're a business on social media, the reach that you get with your content is very limited nowadays. And Facebook, they say, if 100 people like your Facebook page, 2 people from that 100 will see it. I would argue it's less than 1, but they say 2%. So businesses really have to pay to get the content out there now, or make content that goes viral. And that's not easy to do. Certainly not easy to do on a daily basis, and not easy to do. You can't switch on and off, you just get lucky with these things. LinkedIn is slightly different in that LinkedIn is not reliant on ad revenue. LinkedIn makes a lot of money from their recruiter platform, they make a lot of money from their CRM, sales navigator platform, and they make money from premium memberships. So the control of that newsfeed is not as bad, and you can still get organic reach on LinkedIn. But it's wrong to think that you'll get a real genuine reach with social media without an element of paid. But they have, I mean, you get back to the question about the change in technology. I mean, the arrival of social media is the biggest shift in marketing since the printing press, which was in, I don't know, 1700 something. And people say, well, what about radio and television? The printing press gave people the ability, one person the ability to talk to many people. Radio and television were just more of the same, just different tools, but more of the same. One person could talk to lots of people. The arrival of social media, and I don't mean the internet, I mean Web 2 in 2004, 2005, enabled people to talk to people. So everybody can talk to everybody, and that was a paradigm shift in the way that we communicate, and that fundamentally changed marketing forever. Because for a lot of brands, a brand is not what the brand says it is, the brand is what the consumer says it is, because everybody's a publisher now, and that's something that as marketers we have to be aware of all the time. And that's why it's such a fundamental shift when social media came along, is it connected everyone.
So do you feel like social media is somehow changing our society by giving everyone a platform and that instantaneous ability to, give reviews to any brand and talk to each other at any moment in time?
Yeah, there's no doubt. Reviews is a good example of it. It always ceases to amaze me that we'll take a recommendation from somebody we don't know and have never met, and I will believe them. So, a TripAdvisor review, you'll believe it, but you've never even met the person who's actually recommended it. And that surprises me as an older person, because if you'd said that would happen 30 years ago, you would have thought, no, you're bonkers, that's never going to happen. But in reality, with any review site, that's what happens. We believe what somebody we don't know or never met, we believe what they're saying. So that has changed. I think I was talking to somebody yesterday about this Amazon Prime mentality, where everybody has no patience anymore. They want everything now, So that has changed the market as well. Is this, people don't want to wait for something, they need it now, because it's just become an expectation now that everything's available. So
you get the instant reward from scrolling social media as well.
Yeah. So enormous changes in society in the way that people expect things to happen. And as I say, the one that baffles me is the review culture, that we accept what other people say rather than. And in a lot of instances, we'll accept what other people say before we'll accept what a brand says. So, people are much more trusting of complete strangers than they are of brands. So it is a challenge when you're trying to market a brand. And a lot of what we do within FatBuzz is community management, where we will manage a lot of what a brand's community are saying. And it's very, very important to manage it. Otherwise, it gets out of hand, and you need to acknowledge and thank the people who praise a brand, and you need to acknowledge and respond to people who have got some complaint about a brand. So it's a very important element of what we do, and it's an important element of marketing and to manage that online community.
Because our society is more of a network now, I guess, as well. It's interesting because our previous guest actually made a business from collecting reviews, and he made his own platform, his own app for creating reviews for businesses, and he successfully sold it now. So congratulations to him. But you were also involved in producing podcasts. For different companies. Could you share a bit of that experience, please?
Yeah, we actually produced the very first podcast in the UK for a building society back in 2004.
So the first ever podcast
for a building society.
For a building society.
A building society down south. A series of podcasts, and that was in 2004. And then, and these days, podcasting was very clunky. You had to record the podcast, you had to then upload it to a server, you had to then download it onto your iPod and listen to it through your headphones. And for a while, podcasting wasn't so popular. Now, and in a way, it came along too quickly for the technology, a bit like QR codes. QR codes have been around for 30 years, but it's only now people are starting to use them because it was too difficult to actually scan. And podcasts were the same, that it was just a clunky and sort of a lot of effort you had to do to actually make a podcast, and just as much effort to consume a podcast. And as an experiment, about 3 years ago, I actually recorded a podcast in my car, uploaded it to the server, and sent the link to iTunes, downloaded it back onto my phone, and played it through the Bluetooth speakers on the phone in the one journey. So that's how accessible podcasting has become now, and that's why it's so popular. And I think people also are now keen to choose what they listen to, rather than listen to a DJ, telling you what he's going to play for you, she's going to play for you. People want to choose what they listen to and spend their time maybe more productively. And for the brands, it's an opportunity to talk directly into the ear of somebody who's chosen to listen. So it's very, very powerful, and hence the reason it's becoming more and more popular again. Podcasting is certainly worth consideration within any marketing mix.
Yeah, and I read recently that there is over a couple million different podcasts. So everyone appears to be doing their own podcasts, and
Well, it's so easy to do it now. But a lot of people have become very famous because they've come up with interesting content that other people want to listen to. It's very easy to create them and to publish them. So if you've got a good story to tell, then and especially quite a lot of people we deal with are not actually good at writing. Or if you put a video camera in front of them, they just freeze. But they'll talk all day long about a topic. So podcast is a good medium for them to use.
Because they don't have to show their face and they don't have to write anything as well.
They have to put their makeup on and stuff like that.
That's great. Well, everyone is different, they have their different personal qualities. And talking about personal qualities or skills, what do you think are the most important qualities that are necessary if one wants to become successful in our ever-changing world today with social media and podcasts and so much technology that's evolving so quickly?
I don't know about quality. Well, come back to qualities. I think you have to have a good product, a good service to start with, whether it's a new product or when I started in business, what I was doing wasn't new. It was just I started a marketing agency. You may be involved in developing a new product or coming up with new technology that's going to disrupt an existing process. But you need to start with a good product. And very few bad products survive, if any bad products survive. It's very difficult to go and buy a bad thing. You can't buy a bad cake or a bad car or a bad whatever. It's only the
people who write reviews about it.
My
podcast.
But so the product is important, but in terms of qualities, I think if you're in business, for me, the ability to understand what a business needs and understand how that business operates and exactly what is going to help actually promote that brand. As I say, it's surprising how often you speak to business owners who don't know, or their market has changed and they haven't managed to establish how it's changed or how to reach this new market they've got. So I think that quality, the ability to build relationships is critical to any business. It's about, and my advice to anybody is develop a personal brand. So tell people who you are, what you are, and there isn't an early enough time to do that. And I'm advising school kids, older school kids, to actually establish a LinkedIn presence, have a LinkedIn profile, develop a profile on LinkedIn, tell people about it, tell people what you're into. And then beyond that, build your social capital by being involved in decent networks. This is a good start. It's a network of, entrepreneur society. But it's, at the moment when you're at university, it's about developing human capital. So it's about education and learning and what you know. Social capital is much more about who you know. And that becomes very, very important when you go into business. And what you know is important, and knowing about your product and your area of expertise is important. But when you want to actually try and sell it, who you know becomes very important. So I think the ability to build relationships, and that, interestingly, building relationships is one thing that AI can't replace. AI can replace most things, but it cannot build relationships. And that is a very important element to me of being in business is networking and building relationships with clients and with people in the industry and with competitors even. And I'm friendly with most of the competitors I have. It's not a case of stabbing each other on the back. We all talk to each other and we're all very supportive of each other. But it's just part of that social capital that you need to build up if you're going to succeed in business.
So you mentioned communities like our Entrepreneurship Society. You're also chairman of WeDo Scotland.
Yeah, WeDo Scotland is a good example of a business community, and with a group of about 150 business owners. You have to be a business owner, CEO, to be a member of the group. And it's very much a knowledge sharing and networking organisation. It's not the events you don't turn up your brochure, hand it out, hope your business. It's about helping each other, introducing them where you see an opportunity for somebody to say, well, actually, you should speak to Gordon over there because they're doing something similar, or there's a synergy there that we could maybe take advantage of. So it's about spotting these opportunities for each other. As a business or business owner, we've always operated in a referral of culture, a culture of referrals, where it's surprising that many of our clients end up working together. And it's because we've been in touch with each other, and it's because we quite openly talk about our clients. We don't hide our client list from anybody. We find out who our clients are, no problem. And the reality is, we find out who Henry's clients are without any difficulty. So the advantages of talking about your clients far outweigh the risks of exposing who your clients are to so-called competitors. So because we talk about our clients, and we have a brochure, which in the brochure it says we talk about our clients, we talk to our clients, we talk about our clients, and we encourage our clients to talk to each other. So it encourages this referral culture. And as a result, I'm getting great you get what you get. So if we refer a lot of clients and put a lot of people in touch with each other, we will receive the same. And that's probably the case of years we get. Our business is built on referrals, word of mouth, so on. So that's the way we've built businesses, to encourage interaction among others.
So basically, you're a believer in karma. If you do something good for others, then that's the same good energy will come back to you.
Yeah, very much so. And that's what, really that's at the core of what we do. And during COVID, for example, it was an invaluable organisation because of the amount of businesses who were struggling. We were very fortunate in that we expanded through COVID and we didn't follow any, we expanded the business, but there were lots of members of WeDo where the businesses had completely shut down. And lots of businesses where they shut down with no chance of ever recovering, and they had to come up with either new products, new services, or new ways of doing things. And the support that the members gave each other was quite heartwarming actually, and it'd great to see. And one of the other things about being in business is it can be a very lonely place. So a business owner, an entrepreneur, can at times feel very lonely because you're the guy that's the buck stops at you, and you're the guy that everybody's depending on. So having that organisation or network of like-minded individuals with the same core beliefs is very, very important. And that's why I think WeDo is successful. And not just WeDo, there's any things like Chambers of Commerce, and they all do a fantastic job of bringing like-minded people together. And I think it's back to this social capital and getting involved in networks that will help you as you progress in life.
That's great. We'll end with one last question, and then we'll give the audience a chance to ask their own questions. And going back, who was your first client who you established? You've managed to establish a great, long-lasting relationship with?
It wasn't my first client. It wasn't long after I started. A company that we started to work with, an individual we started to work with, who had set up business in his house, and when he still lived at home, and he'd set up business in his bedrooms. I think that was in 1988. And we still work on that client today. They now turn over 21 million.
Still from your house?
No, well, you would prefer it was still from his house, when I get that big office set up in several cities, but we still do all of the marketing for them to this day. We're back to the relationship building. We are very much about building long-term relationships with clients. We don't really do project work at all. So well, that's a lie. We do web design work and web development work can be just projects when it comes to his work website, and that's it. But the vast majority of our work is done on a container basis. So, and we prefer to have long-term relationships with clients. And I haven't done the exercise for a long while, but at one point, the average client had been with us for something like 10 years. So it's about building these relationships and growing with, and being able to change with the business as the business needs to change. For a lot of clients, we are the right source marketing department, so we grow with it. If we need more resources for that client, we'll put more resources. So, yeah, so I got 88 what is that client 4 years ago. So,
what does that client do?
Yeah, believe it or not, they're in IT. They did IT support back then, but they recently just done, they provided all the IT support for the Commonwealth Games in Brunel. So they do big projects. But they do a lot of satellite Wi-Fi communications in rural areas and stuff like that, which is fancy things. But yeah, so 34 years we've been working with them. And that's the longest time we've got.
Hopefully that relationship will last for as long, if not longer.
I think we've got to know them now, so these are the best relationships, the ones that when you really get.
And when there's trust, that's when you can start having a great relationship, I guess.
I actually wrote an article today and I quoted, I don't know if anybody here is familiar with Tony Shea, who, if you want an interesting read and invaluable read, he wrote a book called Delivering Happiness. Tony Shea was, he left university, started a business again from his house. It grew, a software business, it grew very quickly, and he sold it when he realised he had hit the snooze button on his alarm probably through lunchtime one day. He said, "You are bored with this business, so bored I can't get up." So he sold it to Microsoft for $287 million. And he then invested in other businesses. But one of the businesses he invested in was a company called Zappos, who were online shoe retailers in America. And he eventually owned the whole company. And he built it up until it got to a size where Jeff Bezos of Amazon called him and said, "I'd like to come see you." He said, "Not interested in selling." And Tony had built the business around 10 core values. And this is where I got to this story. One of the core values was to build trust through honest and open communication. And he said, when trust exists, it achieves so much more. So trust is very, very important. The outcome of that story was that Jeff Bezos said he at least had coffee with him. So I had coffee with him. And he said, "Why do you want to sell to me?" He said, "Well, I don't want Zappos to inherit your culture." And he said, "Well, you've got it a long way around. I want to buy Zappos so that we can inherit your culture." And he ended up, he bought it for $1.2 billion from, and Tony shared when he was 35 at that point. Very, very sadly, Tony Sheik died in a house fire a couple of, what do you call it? Some before Christmas in Edinburgh. Thanksgiving, yeah. He got home for Thanksgiving, he caught in the family home and his family died. But his book called Delivering Happiness is an amazing read on company culture and building a culture. And well worth the read if you get the chance to get on this.
Thank you for the recommendation.
Yeah.
It's inspiring and tragic story at the same time.
But it is very much about building trust. And he's right, when people trust you, you can achieve lots. And whether that's in running a business or attract investment or whatever, trust is very important.
Does anyone have any questions?
A question regarding marketing trajectories in the future. We talked about the difficulties you faced during the pandemic. What sort of marketing trends can we see in the future in terms of running a company, but also delivering to clients? Just elaborate on that a bit further, please.
If I knew the answer to that, yeah, no, yeah. I think a lot of the challenges are going to be around this ability to reach people, because the internet is a very noisy place now. There's lots of content out there. So continuing to be able to create compelling and engaging content is going to be a challenge, and actually finding the audience for it without having to pay heavily for it, I think it's going to be a challenge. One of the tips that we would give anybody is if you are trying to use social media, use the very latest tools. And if, for example, a couple of years ago, LinkedIn introduced the ability to upload video natively to LinkedIn. Before that, you had to share a link to YouTube or Vimeo or somewhere else. But a couple of years ago, they made it possible for you to upload your video directly to LinkedIn. Now, when a platform like that does that, they will heavily promote the ability to do that, and they'll give that preference in the newsfeed. So any new functionality you see within any of these platforms, the platform is going to give that type of content preference. So as marketers, we're always looking for what new functionality has become available on any of these platforms, or what new platforms will become available. I guess one of the challenges for us is to keep up to date with that, keep ahead of the game with that, and quickly adapt to how to use that functionality in a meaningful way for each of our clients. But it's one of the things I did over right up until the pandemic for the previous 11 years was run a New Media Breakfast in Glasgow and Edinburgh. So in Glasgow, we had about 120 companies the last Friday of every month came to a breakfast presentation, an hour-long presentation. Now, if you're going to stand in front of 120 companies every month and talk about an area of marketing, and it was primarily social media, you need to know what you're talking about. So it was a brilliant discipline for us actually doing research. and stay up to date with the latest trends and all this. And our team generally do that. I'm much more involved now in the relationship side of things, business development and so on. I don't do so much client work now, but the team in the office do keep up to date with the latest technology, and where possible we will adopt whatever new functionality or new technology comes along, because we know that it's going to get traction for a period of time. And I think that's the main challenge is trying to find new stuff and make proper use of it. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, so you started a long time ago, right? So when you started, what was your main driving factor? Because most times when you start a business, I guess it's not just money what's driving you forward, right? But you got to the point that you can say, okay, I've done it, I'm retiring. Have you thought about that? Like from where you started, you know?
And I think, especially nowadays, people start there's a bigger variety of reasons for starting a business. When I started a business, it was kind of in my DNA. My dad had his own business, I had other family members with their own business, and he brought up around that sort of culture of business ownership. And as I say, I didn't start anything new, I didn't come up with a new idea, I just took the skills I had and started a business. Nowadays, and I see it a lot, we do some work with Glasgow University, Strathclyde University, or Caledonian University, and I see it a lot where there are some remarkable ideas, and we did a lot with, I don't know if any of you are familiar with Scottish Institute of Enterprise, which has now been disbanded, but it worked with all the colleges and universities of Scotland to identify potential entrepreneurs and to help them develop their ideas. Now, that is a lot of people I see now setting up a business are kind of forced into it because they've come up with an idea or a product and they need investment, and suddenly they find that somebody's throwing a pile of money at them to develop this product, and all of a sudden they're ahead of a business and they never planned set out to do that. But and that's where again your social capital really comes into play, because you need people around about you that can help you to build a business. But I think my driving force, or the reason I started, was that I'd always been brought up around people that owned their own business, and that's why I did it. In terms of retirement, it's something I haven't thought about until fairly recently. And at one point, I looked at just selling out to probably somebody from outside of London agency wanting to establish a presence in Scotland. The reality right now, with all the talk of independence, is that London companies are not interested in Scotland. If a London company wants to expand over to Birmingham or Leeds or Manchester or something like that, they wouldn't take the risk of investing heavily into Scotland at the moment, and that's the sad reality of it. I then looked at the possibility of employee ownership, where I effectively sold the business to the employees. But I mentioned earlier that I have two of my kids and my daughter-in-law all work in the business full-time. My wife works in the business full-time. And the likelihood is that I'm now going to sell, transfer shares to my kids, and in return for doing that, I can take money tax-free from the business to give me something to live off in later years. But as I say, it's only in the last year or two that I've been considering this, and I'm not in any hurry to do it. I still love what I do, so there's no desperate rush to do it. I think more and more businesses that start out with an exit plan, and there's absolutely nothing wrong with that. In fact, there's probably a better way to do it than what I've done.
Any more questions?
Sir, how do you evaluate the current situation that you're experiencing a huge transition from the corona back to normal life, and how does this change affect business, especially in the marketing area?
I was on, I don't know if any of you listened to the Hunter Hockey show on Go Radio, business show on Sunday morning. That's Lord Hockey and Tom Hunter. And they had me on because of this very question about, because I've made no secret of the fact that I'm not far of remote working. And this new hybrid working and remote working, as far as I'm concerned, does not work. And there's a simple reason for that. During COVID, we had our team at home for 15 months working from home. And the major thing that I could see in that 15 month period was a lack of personal development. The team, and bear in mind they're all young, they're between the age of 25, 24, 32, 33 age. And that's the age where you're learning lots and lots and lots in the workplace. You've left the university, you've got your degree, you've been into the workplace, and now you're learning about these building relationships and all the stuff that goes along with servicing clients, understanding their needs and all this. And there's a vast amount of unconscious learning that goes on in an office environment. Listening to how people deal with something, or listening how to respond to a comment, or listening how they interpret a client's needs or whatever, even body language, stuff like that. So for 15 months, people hadn't developed, they hadn't moved on. And one of the big concerns I have for probably 3-4 years down the line is that age group, you're expecting them to then move up to be, take more responsibility, be the people that are developing the business, developing the relationships, but they're scared to do it. They're scared to even meetings nowadays because of work from home, and they've been isolated and have continued to work from home. Which was the primary reason I wanted to get everybody back to the office. And it's a very collaborative environment we work in anyway. Our whole marketing team meet every Tuesday morning and discuss each other's clients. And they all come up with ideas for each other's clients. So you get lots of heads inputting ideas. That didn't happen. The other thing that didn't happen from the business and client's point of view is that if you're involved in meetings, a lot of the opportunities that exist, you spot in the discussion before a meeting or the preamble after a meeting, where you're discussing what happened in the meeting. But when you're doing meetings on Zoom, it's done pretty much to agenda, and then you hit end all, and everybody's away, gone. There's no discussion. That stifled ideas, and it stifled product and service development within clients, within businesses as well, because of that collaboration. So it's a real challenge, this post-pandemic era, where, and I did say on the radio programme that I do predict a problem further down the line for when we expect this generation to take the next step up and start taking responsibility, and they have no experience to do it. And I think that is a real challenge going forward. And then, of course, we're going into potentially into another recession. So you're just getting back on your feet from one potential disaster to potential another one. And unfortunately, I've been in business through 3 recessions now, so I kind of know what's coming. But trying to tell people who haven't experienced it what's coming is a challenge as well. And it's that can be scary. You've seen it, you've been through it 3 times, but people at the business are thinking, it's fine, we're busy, blah, 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 but it's not going to last, and that's the time to consolidate, that's the time to actually be part of a network and, somewhere you can go to and speak to like-minded people about the challenges you have in business. And that's where these things become invaluable and help you through these difficult times. But one of the things I did say in the programme was that I've met a lot of business leaders who made a knee-jerk reaction and decided to go to a hybrid working situation who have now said to me, we were wrong. And you can't reverse it, start trying to get pay rise away from somebody because you've told them that you work from home 2 days a week. And then you can't suddenly say, no, you're not coming into the office. I never get it because it was a bit of a knee-jerk reaction at the time. But a lot of business leaders and a lot of big businesses are now being a bit more vocal about the fact that it doesn't, that their thinking it doesn't work for them. People are social animals and they need to get out interacting with people, and that's not going to change. And people talk about work-life balance and mental wealth and the mental health and well-being and all the rest of it. I would see how it can be good for somebody to wake up in the same room as you go to sleep. And work is good if you wake up in the same room you're at sleeping, but you wake up in it, you get dressed in it, you work in it, you socialise in it, and then you go back to bed in it. That to me cannot be good for mental health. I mean, even the social interactions you get from buying a coffee and going to work in the morning, or travelling on a train, or just watching other people's body language and stuff, there's soaking in a lot of information and learning from a lot of people all the time. You can realise if you take that away, you can have a massive change in culture, I think, and that's going to manifest itself a few years down the line. And that's probably why I'm glad I'm near a retirement age and you guys are. Sorry if that's all down the road, but it is good fun being in business. But we've come through some challenging times. There's no denying that.
I think collaboratively together we'll get through all the sessions.
Yeah. We've had these things happen for generations, and we've had pandemics before, we've had plagues, we've had recessions, we've had wars. And it's by coming together that you get through it. And that's why, to me, remote working was always the wrong thing to do. Yeah, at the time when it was protecting people fine, but to extend that now, and there's still organisations where the workforce is refusing to come back to the office, but they'll go to the cinema, they'll go on a flight to go on holiday, but they're refusing to come back to the office. But in challenging times, people come together, and that's what that uniting people and meeting challenges together and sharing your experiences is what gets you through these things. So when you isolate everybody, to me that's going against the grain. So.
Does anyone have any more questions?
So you mentioned before about personal development, professional development. What kinds of resources have helped you during your career, or what kind of experiences do you think helped you shape your personal development?
My own personal?
Personal and professional.
Do you mean tools or
either
qualities?
Either tools or maybe some workshops or some experiences that meeting someone or
I've been very lucky to meet a lot of very, very useful and helpful people and a lot of influential people as well. And that gets back to the social capital thing. I think I mentioned earlier that personal branding is very, very important for everybody. And like it or not, there is no delete button on the internet. And as an employer, it's an expensive business for me to employ somebody, train them, So when I'm hiring, I'll use any means possible to find out about somebody's character. That would include looking at social media platforms. So what you tell the outside world is really important, but more important than that, it will, especially when if you can develop a good profile on LinkedIn and be active on it, it will, the algorithm itself will attract the right people to you as well and identify opportunities for you. So developing that personal brand is really, really important. And also, I think, plenty of skills. So, as we mentioned earlier, if you're not good in front of a video camera, I don't think you can be a TV presenter. If you are good at writing about the topic, become a writer or a blogger or whatever. You need to identify your own skills and play for them and make sure that you're making the best use of it. And continue to develop new skills as well that may be related to existing skills you have. But I wrote today in the article that I published today, I wrote the fact that developing human capital, so your knowledge and education of this is a lifelong thing. I'm 62 now, but I still learn every day. And if you're not willing to accept that, and you've still got things to learn, and then give up, and it's that being open to learning and being open to accepting advice, accepting help, and plenty of skills that will get you along. But the personal branding thing is very, very important. And it's something that you can't just switch on, the day you leave university. It's something that you've got to build. So that's why I say there is a better time to do it and start to develop that personal brand and start to attract a relevant community towards you. And you'll be surprised how much the LinkedIn algorithm will help you do that, because it will put your content in front of like-minded people, and it's an incredibly intelligent algorithm that if people manage it properly, it will help them, no matter what you do in life. So, does that answer your question? Yeah.
Yeah, thank you.
I never know when I'm answering questions about it. Just what I've known.
So you just talked about when you recruiting people, like employees. So what kind of person you normally looking at when you recruit employees?
What kind of person are we looking at?
Yeah, like what kind of quality or what kind of professional skill or
Believe it or not, we hire. I don't do a lot of hiring with my daughter that moves back now, but we hire on attitude, not necessarily on qualifications. Yeah, if we're advertising a specific post, we want to know that person can do that job. But the reality is that, if we advertise for a marketing graduate, then in Glasgow, they've pretty much been through one of 4 courses, so they know what they can do. But we're looking for people who want to learn, people who want to better themselves, people who want to progress. So it's about attitude and work ethic.